This wonderful lady with us who knows so much about this county, and she's only lived here 3 years. But this is what she does. She teaches at your college? No.
No, my husband teaches it.
Okay, your husband teaches at your college, and you're a history buff.
I'm a history buff, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you about you.
Hello, I'm Anne Gray. I have become a York County historian. I am also part of the NAACP and the Education Committee because public education seems to have become one of my bailiwicks. So thank you for having me. Deb and I were talking about the definition of intersectionality, and she asked me to come talk to the group about it. Intersectionality is kind of a complicated, mostly academic idea. It came out of feminist and anti-racism theory, basically because people who were studying history and the challenges that we have before us found that descriptions of the problems we face and what we need to and approaches to solving them were incomplete without an understanding of how things intersect. So I'm not talking just about the fact. Okay, I'm not talking just about the fact that if you're disabled and you're a minority and you're a woman and you might just going out on the street experience different types of oppression or problems. And so as groups, we can look at each other and we can look at the problems we're facing and say, oh, well, those, our interests intersect. But this is to take one step further and to say, well, okay, maybe someone's disabled. For instance, let's take somebody who has lost her hearing. Why did she lose her hearing? She might have lost her hearing because she was a single mom and couldn't take time off to go see a doctor. She was sick. Maybe she didn't have health insurance and put off going to see a doctor. Just let it go too long, and a situation that could have been resolved resulted in a lifelong disability. The fact that she couldn't afford to take that time may be related to her race. It may be that her family over generations has missed opportunities. Perhaps they've fought in wars and came back and were not offered the opportunity to get a mortgage or a college degree like the white boys were because they didn't fit in the right group. And these things stack up and they intersect. And so when we look at someone and the challenges they are facing, if we fail to understand how those challenges were in part caused by other aspects of their identity or their status, then we might miss out on understanding how to address those challenges. So I wanted to illustrate this with a story from the Goodrich Freedom Center. I've been helping get this museum started on by the Christmas Addicts Association. We're open every first Friday. Please do check us out. The Goodrich family were Underground Railroad conductors. They were also just this amazing family of entrepreneurs who started out with almost nothing and started with a barbershop and built it into lots of different stores. At one point had 13 railroad cars. They built the first 5-story building on the center square of York. And their son, Glenn Alvin, was one of the first and most abiding photographers, early daguerreotype photographers here in York. They were, William Goodrich had actually been born a slave, been freed when he was 16, and they were both what we might call bright-skinned or mulatto, because they were both half-white. But they had lots of different challenges, and I wanted to look at those from the perspective of their daughter-in-law, Rhoda Gray. The Grays were another prominent African-American family in York. Rhoda, at the age of 16, married the Goodrich's oldest son, Glenn Allen. He was a catch. If you get a chance to look at the picture over there of him with his horse, he was handsome. He was 22. He'd been running a successful photography studio in his parents' 5-story building up at the top, and his parents owned a lot of property here in York. They got married. They had 4 children. They did face various challenges. By 1861, they had 4 kids. They had not just their own house, but they owned 4 houses and a stable. Between the Grays and the Goodriches, they owned the entire block from Queen to Duke on North Philadelphia.
Wow.
So these families were well off by 1857. But in 1857, if you consider the national situation, York had perhaps become a less welcoming place for this family. So, back up. Rhoda married Glenn Alvin in 1850. That same year, the Fugitive Slave Act was passed, or maybe in 1847, but in 1851, we had the Christiana riots across the river, which was where the Fugitive Slave Act gave slave owners from the South the right to come up and reclaim their slaves, and created lots of harsh penalties if you tried to prevent that from happening. A slave owner organized a posse in Maryland and came up here to try to retrieve 2 slaves from the farm of the Parkers, who were very good friends of the Goodriches. They were resisted by a group of black and white abolitionists, and the slave owner himself was killed. The Goodriches helped Parker and his wife and the 2 fugitive slaves escape to Canada. The remaining people were charged with treason. They were what's the word? They were released. They were acquitted. Yeah, but it was a very scary time. It was a very scary example of what could happen. And subsequent to that time, Rhoda's brother Hamilton and Glenn Alvin's oldest sister Emily both actually left this area completely. They went to Minnesota, far away from any slave-owning territory. And in 1857, we have the Dred Scott decision. So this was a Democratic stronghold, but back then the Democratic Party was pro-slavery. Sorry.
Dixiecrats, yeah.
Well, in Pennsylvania, in York, the Democratic Party.
It was
Right. It was a different party. It was a different party at the time, and they here in York we had lots of trade connections to Maryland, and they knew a lot of slave owners and knew that not all of them were awful people. So in 1857 there was kind of a run on the banks, but generally speaking it didn't affect York. York was prosperous at the time. It did, however, affect the Goodriches. The banks called loans that the Goodriches had either taken out themselves or secured on behalf of other people in the community, and William Goodrich was forced to declare bankruptcy. He lost everything. The sheriff seized and auctioned off his entire estate, including the family home on Philadelphia Street, including the 5-story building where Rhoda's husband, Glenn Alvin, had his photography studio. 2 months later, Glenn Alvin and Rhoda defaulted on their mortgage and were reduced to, thankfully, the one piece of property that they owned outright, which was their original home. So by 1861, they had kind of recovered from that. Things were looking good. They had their youngest child, Glenn Alvin Jr. What? Oh, and then disaster. Glenn Alvin had 2 younger brothers who assisted in his photography studio. He had found a new location. He had even opened an extra location in Columbia. And one of the weekly Mondays when he was away in Columbia, his younger brother Wallace, who was still a teenager at the time, fooled around with a girl upstairs in the studio. She was a white girl. She got pregnant. the family sent Wallace away. His sister had moved to Michigan, and he went off to her. This girl, finding herself pregnant with a mulatto baby, not many options, charged Glen Alvin with rape. He went to trial, and his jury was mostly rural, didn't know the family, and he was found guilty on a very flimsy case, and ended up going to prison for 22 months. His father, there might have been a little bit of a delay because there was this thing that called the Battle of Gettysburg or something the following year. But the next fall, his father jumped into a campaign to get him freed. He actually managed to get 107 prominent citizens from York to sign a petition to the governor. Other letters to the governor eventually resulted in Glen Alvin's release and pardon, but partly because, unfortunately, he had caught tuberculosis while in prison. The governor also required that the family leave the state of Pennsylvania as a requirement for his release. So here's Rhoda. She's got 4 kids, 4 beautiful children. She travels with her husband to Michigan, where he has siblings who've settled. But his condition is increasingly debilitated. And in 1867, he traveled with his father out to his other siblings in Minnesota, hoping that that might help his health, but he died by the end of the year. The following year, her 2 oldest children also died of the same thing. Her son William, 15, her son Ralph, 13, right on the brink of their lives. The fact that Rhoda's family lost their property and things, and she lost her oldest 2 children, but they lost their health. These were all intrinsically related to his race, and the fact that he wasn't a Democrat. Unfortunately for her, the following January, the family left the house to go celebrate the anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. Wallace had been invited to share that event that probably would have been promoted in the paper. While they were gone, their house was burned to the ground. You'll see a very lovely family album there. Her husband's brothers continued the photography studio until 1922. It was an amazing accomplishment. There's all kinds of beautiful pictures of William's children, but none of hers. The family lost 2,000 negatives between that fire and another fire, which was accidental, in the studio 2 years later. So she eventually returned to York and died in 1903. She didn't own any property at that point. So I wanted to pick a more general health example for us to look at as far as county history. I didn't just want to talk about a terribly sad, tragic situation. One of the other things that got me into studying York history was I was studying the history of York riots. For instance, the charrette that followed the York riots, which is credited with the creation of Family First. When I studied that, I have to say, I discovered an amazing organization of women that came before that. In fact, it started in 1903, decades before that. And the Visiting Nurse Association is really what caused Family First to successfully happen. They hosted it for 17 months without any funding. And when I looked at the history of what they had accomplished, I became aware of how lucky we are, and also what amazing things we can accomplish as women when we work together. In 1911, when they started, they were looking around at the welfare of women, at the number of women who died from childbirth, at the number of children who died at infancy. The rate of infant death per 1,000 live births at the time for white people was 99. So imagine about 100 babies out of every 1,000 did not survive. There were all kinds of reasons. There were diseases that we don't have now. A lot of them died from diphtheria. They didn't pasteurize milk at the time. But also they found that a lot of what was going on was just that women had rickets. Women were poorly fed, and babies were born with very low birth weights, and there were all these different things. They started a public education and maternity care program. They started a vaccination program in the schools. They started all these things. By 1935, they had cut the infant mortality rate in half. And it continued to fall. If we look at the infant mortality rate on average in Pennsylvania right now, it's about 6 or 7 per 1,000. But is this enjoyed by everybody equally? Well, look back at 1911. The infant mortality rate for black people in Pennsylvania was almost twice that of whites. It was about 180 per 1,000. By 1930, the rates had been cut in half, but the ratio persisted. It was about 80 for blacks, and whites were about 50. Let's step forward to now. So we've enjoyed all kinds of efforts to address these problems. Following the charrette, at that point the Visiting Nurse Association had a very progressive activist director, Ruth Knight. She was just amazing. At the charrette, they tried to address multiple intersecting causes of problems, challenges people faced in terms of access to healthcare, transportation, coordination across the county. So now, here we are. In York County, in 2014, the infant mortality rate for white women is only 3, maybe 4 per 1,000 live births. The infant mortality rate for black babies is 16. Our ratio between the two has actually gotten much worse. So why do I say this? Well, this is related to intersectionality, I believe, in terms of the need to understand the multiple challenges and the multiple barriers that face people when you're trying to get them to access a resource or be involved in an organization. We're hoping to increase the diversity of this organization or any organization we're affiliated with, and we don't consider that our minority population might have more physical and mental health challenges because they've suffered from trauma, they've suffered from poverty. How can we assist them? How can we understand their problems? Especially those of us who are white and reasonably well off. We are the ones with the responsibility of going out of our way to try to understand the challenges particular to people who are different from us. Because we keep trying to lean on them to explain their challenges to us, and they just don't have the time and the energy, and they're busy. They've got 3 or 4 jobs, they've got kids, And so I wanted to invite those here, if you would like to. One of the best ways of getting a little bit outside your own bubble in terms of perception, besides just going and introducing yourself to people who are different from you, is to read stuff that's written by people who are different from you. So the Tropicana box over there on the table is full of books, all kinds of different books. Please take them. If you'd like to make a donation to defray the cost, that's fine, but you don't have to. Read them and pass them on to other people. Keep working. We are so powerful if we work together. In researching this, I ended up looking at the history of women's suffrage in Pennsylvania. I had not realized that here in Pennsylvania, we actually got 2 consecutive state houses to approve the vote for women in 1913 and 1915 to try to get an amendment And then it went to a general vote. Unfortunately, here in York County, that was voted down 2-1.
What a surprise.
By the men, but subsequently we got it, and lots of women registered in 1920. So thank you for listening, and I don't know if
Do you have any questions?
Yes, you mentioned the Goodrich Family Home on Philadelphia Street. Is that still open for tourists to see them, to go underground to see where the?
I'd like to say if you actually want to go underground, you have to volunteer. But we will actually be having a spring cleaning March 31st in the afternoon if you want to come over. Because the following day the Underground Railroad Symposium is going to be coming over for a tour. We are open every first Friday of the month from 4 until 8. The underground hiding place is now covered with a glass viewing plate, so anybody coming in for a tour can see it, and it is a powerful thing. They had a place in their kitchen that was a hideaway, or under it, I should say. Yeah.
You mentioned the DNA. I believe they have a fundraiser. Do you know anything about that?
Oh, this year's fundraiser I do not know about. I was so impressed to realize that they had a fundraiser for ages. Every year they had a Red Letter Day fundraiser. In 1950 they raised like $56,000.
They're an outstanding organization, and if you go online and look it up, DNA fundraiser, it's a bingo thing if you like bingo.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And there are prizes, I understand, but that's all I know. It is happening.
Yeah. They in later days they became part of the United Way and then got folded into WellSpan. But they are still offer all kinds of amazing services. Yeah.
What an interesting story.